And a good afternoon to all. This will be the third board in chapter 5 of Ronghhua's Sandwich House Defense Treatise. There were 5 boards in this book, and in the third board, Red would choose to attack with the 5-8 cannons. As in my earlier videos, I've deliberately chosen to place Black at the bottom of the board so that interested players can view the board as seen from the eyes of the player using the Sandwich House defense. So without further ado, we shall begin. Sandwich House defense and the third pawn advancement. This would be the difference in the third board of the chapter 5. Instead of the earlier boards whereby the 5-6 cannons were used, the 5-7 cannons, in this board Red would choose to attack with the 5-8 cannons. So one of the motives of the 5-8 cannons, or the cross riverbank cannon, would be to attack the black pawn on Black's 7 file, and this would add pressure on Black's left flank. And as in the other boards in chapter 5, Black could defend with the left elephant variation. So this will be the topic of discussion, and at this point there were 3 major variations that were discussed. We shall go into them one by one. In a nutshell, the 3 variations would be advancing the horse to the riverbank, h3 plus 4, developing the other horse as a left horse, as an edge horse, and the third variation would be developing the other horse as a proper horse. Okay, so we shall study the first variation. With h3 plus 4, Red would be prepared to attack the pawn, and this cannon could traverse to this line so that it would it will slow the development of Black's horses. And Black would usually play a6 plus 5, and it will be very important for Red to make this move. This is because after Black played a6 plus 5, Black would be prepared to develop his left chariot. And how would Black do so? So if, say, after Black played a6 plus 5 and Red decided to move his other horse as a proper horse, Red could threaten to capture the advisor and threaten to capture the red chariot. So if Black took revenge, Black would pin the horse and the red king in the same file. So this would be in effect a trade-off of Black's cannon for the red horse, and Black would gain an advisor in the process while develop his left chariot also. So it will be to Black's advantage in this situation. So once a6 plus 5 is played, Red must play a4 plus 5 as a prophylactic measure. So Black would usually play p1 plus 1. The reasons for this would be since Black had already pushed p3 plus 1, Red would most probably develop, or there would be a chance that Red would develop his left horse as an edge horse. So p1 plus 1 would hamper the development of Red's left horse. It will also allow the black chariot, to move to his own pawn rank if need be to threaten the red cannon. So Red would choose to develop his left horse as a proper horse, and Black would choose to trade pawns. One of the main aims of Red's pawn rank cannon would be to move to this flank, and by choosing to trade pawns, Red's pawn rank cannon, the efficiency of this move would be greatly decreased, because now Red cannot capture the edge pawn, and Black would be able to threaten to capture the red cannon with this move. So p7 plus 1 would be a good response from black in this situation. So what would happen if, say, red chose to threaten to capture the red cannon? And red would have the significant advantage at this point in time. So black would have to protect the horse and lose his elephant in the process. So it would be advisable for black to play p7 plus 1 to offer a trade of pawns. So after trading pawns, black would choose to chase the red cannon away. So at this point in time, red could retreat his cannon or push his pawn forward, push the third pawn forward. So what would happen if p3 plus 1 were played instead? This will result in a complicated situation, and the lines given in the book were as such. Black would trade chariots, and it would not be ideal for red to trade chariots immediately, because if this were done, and black would have seized the initiative from black, and red's left flank would be a very weak area of the board whereby the black chariot could attack. So at this point, black would be better instead. So that is why it would not be ideal for red to trade chariots. Instead, by pushing the chariot to the cross riverbank rank, the red horse would be allowed to develop some more. And however, at this point in time, red had attacked with a lone horse, and this is one of the major this is generally discouraged, because attacking with a lone piece without any backup would often, the piece that was attacking would often fall prey to the enemy. And besides, at this point in time, we can see that red's left flank was not developed, and to get the chariot out, red would have to put in much effort. So red would have surrendered the initiative to black. Hence, choosing to push p3 plus 1 would not be a good idea. Instead, the Grandmaster advocated retreating the cannon. So after retreating the cannon, the pawn would be captured, and black would have gained control of the situation. Hence, advancing the cannon in this manner, or pushing the red horse so early in the game to the riverbank, was deemed to not be a very good idea for red by the Grandmaster. So a short review of the first variation. So in variation 1, red will push the red horse to the riverbank, and his left flank would still not be developed. Protect. This is a must-make move, or black will be prepared to capture the advisor. And this would be another key move for black, offering to trade pawns. And after threatening the cannon, it would be better for red to retreat the cannon, and black would have a slight advantage in this at this point in time. So in the second variation, instead of h3 plus 4, red would choose to develop his left horse as an edge horse. So after h8 plus 9, again black would play a6 plus 5. This would be a more steadfast option, and one might wonder, would it be a good idea to push the edge pawn forward at this point? So in the book, the Grandmaster gave this line. So instead of pushing the advisor, if p1 plus 1 were played, red would capture the pawn, and red would offer a trade of chariots at this point, and the black chariot would not have any good lines for further development, because this line will be protected by the red cannon, and if black were to retreat the chariot to his own pawn rank, there would not be any further good space to move. So if black traded chariots, red would still have the slight advantage, as black would still have not developed his left chariot, and the red's edge horse would now be positioned on the riverbank, where it could create some trouble if need be. Hence, p1 plus 1 would not be a good idea at this point. Instead, a6 plus 5 was advocated by the Grandmaster. So red will continue with his plans and play c8 equals to 3, and red would take the chance to develop his right chariot, and black would pounce on the chance to form a blockade. Trade off the chariots, and red's chariot will still be very poorly developed. At this point in time, it will be considered that black would have the initiative. So using the 5-8 cannons with the edge horse variation would not be ideal. A short recap: a6 plus 5, capturing the pawn as intended, and black would choose to develop his right chariot, and form a blockade. And black would then trade chariots to negate any threats from this troublesome red chariot. And red's chariot will still be poorly developed. So back to our position of discussion. After the left elephant, the first variation was h3 plus 4, the second was h8 plus 9. The third variation would be developing the left horse as a proper horse for red. This would be a very complicated variation, and black would, if red had developed his proper horse, it would be a target of attack for this pearl corner cannon. So black would often attack the horse, and red would counter in this manner, and black would choose to develop his right horse and threaten to capture the cannon by pushing the black pawn forward. So red would capture the pawn as intended initially, and this position is quite commonly seen in tournaments or actual play. So at this point in time, there were two major subvariations for black. So the first would be r1 plus 1 to develop the right chariot as a rank chariot, while the other one would be to develop it as a foul chariot. So we shall take a look at the first variation, whereby black would develop his right chariot as a rank chariot. Red would develop his own chariot too, and because the red horse was not protected, it would become a target of attack by black, and c2 equals to 3 would threaten to black would threaten to advance his pawn forward and to capture the red horse. So red could counter in this manner, again, a6 plus 5 would be a important move to make. If the advisor were not moved, this will be a prophylactic measure, because if black chose to attack with r1 equals to 4, threatening to play r4 plus 6, red could attack the cannon in this manner. So if the cannon moved, the black elephant would be caught. Hence, a6 plus 5 can be considered to be a prophylactic measure against the situation. So after a6 plus 5 was played, black would continue to continue to threaten the black cannon, and black would protect the cannon in this manner, and there would be much pressure on red's 7th file. Red would choose to be aggressive by offering a trade of horses, and this was the move that was given in the Grandmaster's book. Instead of, one might wonder, would it be okay for black to capture the horse in retaliation? It would not be a good idea, because red would have captured the central pawn, and he will be attacking black's left flank. And after moving the centroid cannon away, black could solidify his defenses for the time being. So red would have a huge advantage, as red could continue with r2 equals to 7 or c5 equals to 7 for attack. So it would not be a good idea for black to play h7 plus 5. Instead, the Grandmaster suggested c6 equals to 5 to sacrifice his cannon. So after capturing the cannon, then would the horse be captured. So because the cannon was sacrificed, the red's central cannon would not be able to capture the horse as intended. So, and red would still have a huge advantage in this situation. And as can be seen in this sub-variation, as a short recap, black would choose to develop his chariot as a ranked chariot, but as we could see from the lines given just now, this would not be a good idea, because further development of this chariot would be very limited, and black would be susceptible to attacks by red on the central file. So in the second sub-variation, black would choose to develop his right chariot as a file chariot. So red will continue with r9 equals to 8 in response, and c2 advancing the cannon c2 plus 6 will be the key move for black to make in this variation. This would be a very aggressive move, whereby black would threaten to form an even stronger blockade on the red cannon, and there will be many ways for black to attack, as will be seen later on. So in response to c2 plus 6, red would usually do one of the following things: r2 plus 7 to attack the black horse, or c5 equals to 1. If c5 equals to 1 were played, black would continue his aggressive approach to the game. So red would not have gained much in this situation. c5 equals traversing the cannon to the first file was played so that red could be prepared to play a4 plus 5 to free himself of the blockade. However, as mentioned earlier, r2 equals to 7 would be an aggressive counter by black. Hence, r2 plus 7 to threaten the black horse would be a better choice in this situation. Black would usually continue with h4 plus 3, and this would be a very aggressive move, because the black horse was sacrificed. But black would threaten to play h3 plus 1 for on the next move to go for the elbow horse checkmate or elbow horse check, while threatening to capture the red chariot at this point. The efficiency or the efficiency of the black cannon can now be appreciated because it would have blocked the elephant from protecting this intersection. So if red continued to capture the horse, black would continue with h3 plus 1, and at this point there were two sub-variations that were discussed. The first of which would be an aggressive counter with c5 plus 5, and the second will be r3 equals to 4. If r3 equals to 4 were played, red would go ahead with the check, and red would counter sacrifice his cannon, and after sacrificing the red chariot, black would gain back his red chariot with this move. This will be a discovered check, and black would have a significant advantage because the black chariot will now be prepared to play r9 equals to 8 for the threat to checkmate, and red's defense would be in a disarray. The red chariot would not be able to do much either, because if the red chariot would retreated to his own pawn rank, his own third rank, black would still play r9 equals to 8 to threaten to checkmate, and this would discourage the red chariot from capturing it, or red would lose another chariot. And also at this point in time, the black pawn will be prepared to storm across the river, and red cannot move either elephant, or his horse will be lost. So at this point in time, black would have a significant advantage. Hence, r3 equals to 4 cannot be considered, and red will usually play c5 plus 5, and red would capture the cannon, and black would have a significant advantage in this situation. So a short recap: in the third variation, h8 plus 7 was played, as red would develop his left horse as a proper horse. So c6 plus 5, moving the cannon back, and black would choose to counter aggressively with h3 plus 4. It would not be a good idea for black to move r1 plus 1 or r1 equals to 2, and if r1 plus 1 were played, r9 equals to 8, threatening the red horse, and red would have a huge advantage. So at this point in time, it would be better for black to develop his chariot as a foul chariot, and the moves given were, this would be the key move as mentioned earlier, and black would be better off with the chariot. And going back to the position of discussion, in case you're lost, this would be the position that was discussed, whereby red would attack with the 5-8 cannons, and black would defend with the left elephant variation. The first variation was developing red's right horse, and this would result in a cramped left flank. The second would be developing the left horse as an edge horse, but again, black could deal with this situation easily. And the last one would be hs plus 7, and it would be important for black to develop his chariot as a foul chariot and also make this move. So I hope you've enjoyed this short video tutorial, and there are 2 more bots left in this chapter, and I will finish them very soon. And thank you for following my tutorials, and if you like my videos, please give me a like on YouTube. Thank you and have a nice day.